Thank you for listening to an overview of the required TBT form for the 2015-2016 school year. This form is required for all buildings in our district. Those buildings that have the designation of focus or watch do have minute requirements for their teacher-based teams. If you are not a building that does not have that designation of focus or watch, you are required to use our TBT form, but not have the minute requirements as other buildings. So let's look at the form. This is our form. At the bottom of the form, it actually will take you through the 5-step process. We're going to go through each tab. I'm going to show you a form that is not completed and a form that was completed by one of our TBTs. Okay, the first tab at the bottom is the TBT agenda and notes. On this page this is the first page of the form. Buildings will record this information. This agenda is populated on the form because these are the primary things that should be discussed at your teacher-based team meeting. The rules and norms should be first attendance and then review of your agenda. We should at most of our TBT meetings be bringing examples of student work for instructional practice, which is our step 3 in the process. This is the area that tells you focus on what to bring, notes from the meeting, student trend data, your norms pre-populated here, roles and responsibility, team members, attendance for that particular meeting before the next meeting. Let's look at it completed. The school has their school information here, what grade level, what content area they were focusing on, the week, the time is missing here. This is a building that does not have a designation of focus or alert, so they didn't have the time, but if you are a focus or watch building, you will have to have the time. They again communicated what to bring to their next meeting. These are very detailed notes of what took place at the meeting and any trend data that they saw with students. Their norms are already pre-populated at the top so that you have those. The roles, facilitator, recorder, reporter, and timekeeper, and they are assigned. These are roles that are required for all teacher-based teams. You may add roles to that, but these are required. These are the team members. They're already pre-populated here. And since they're pre-populated here, all they have to do for each meeting is either all staff members from that TBT were attending, or there was a staff member or more that was not able to attend. And the next one is before the next meeting, they know what to bring. They're bringing the beginning adult implementation, which is usually student work. Our tab 2 is an overview of your the Common Assessment Short Cycle. This is where you document the information from that Common Assessment Short Cycle, the name, the next unit of study, the academic focus, or the correlating questions. It has 3 already for you. You may add additional ones as you progress throughout the year. This school had, they're going to be looking at the DMA. Their next unit of study is Unit 4, Solving Subtraction Problems. Their academic focus was removal rivets are unknown. And the correlating question for this common assessment was word problem number 2. So in the next tab is step 2, where we're actually going to be looking at this common assessment and specifically diving into the data. How do we do that? The way that our TBTs do that in looking at that data analysis is we look at what were the students' strengths. As a TBT, we come to a consensus looking at maybe the 3 highest scoring questions for what the students' strengths were, and then we communicate based on that strength What do we attribute that to? What best practice? Again, even though we're looking at that common assessment as a whole, we're really going to focus on one strength and one obstacle. So we're going to look at the common assessment, identify 3 high scores questions, come to a consensus as a teacher-based team what those questions are or were, and then we're going to identify the strengths and align it with the best practices. We then will look at the obstacles that students had, come to a consensus as a TBT, what were the 3 lowest scoring questions. And when we do that, we're going to look at that first obstacle that students had on that common assessment. That will then become our first learning target. Again, remembering that we know that we come to a consensus with the obstacle, but we also understand that as individual teachers, we may need to intervene with some of those students that were not a majority in the questions that we identified as a TBT. So we're going to identify the obstacle. We're going to document what that obstacle is. That's going to be our first learning target. Let's see what a completed one looks like. Again, they identified their first obstacle was students struggle with add to change unknown problems. While many were observed acting out the problems accurately, they struggle with identifying the missing add-in. So their learning target will be this. So then we will go into our first intervening for students for different cohorts and our first short cycle common assessment. So this is the form that we're going to utilize for, it is our pre-post number 1, where we intervene for students, and we have the ranges from far from proficient, close to proficient, or proficient. We will we have an area for our learning target. We have an area here without subgroup data and with subgroup data. This is our pre and our post. Buildings may put names of students or the number of students. That is a building's decision. Let's look at a completed. Here, they had their learning target. They have teachers' names without subgroup data and then with subgroup data. They have their pre-assessment because they looked at that common assessment and determined what was that first learning target, looked at that data and used that as their pre-baseline data. After they identify what that learning target is, then we go to step 3, prioritizing your students' needs, what the students will do in those different cohorts. And this is the important part. What will the adults do in order to intervene with these students in these different cohorts? Let's look at it completed. Again, remember that learning target was use addition to solve word problems, situations of adding. This is what the students will do based on their cohorts. And this is what the teachers will do based on the cohorts. So let's look at one. Close to proficient students will accurately solve unknown problems without the support of manipulatives or drawing. ESL, discuss, post, and provide synonyms for beginning, middle, end change. The teacher will support students in, they will model a beginning, middle, end, graphic organizer doing whole group instruction for relevant unknown, change unknown lessons, make student graphic organize available, and use prompting questions. How many blank were there in the beginning of the story? Again, this is an important part of the 5-step process, understanding specifically we are what students will be doing, and the most effective part is what are we doing as adults to intervene for the students. Then we will talk about how do we assess students' learning based on the different cohorts of proficient, close to proficient, and far away, and then creating SMART goals for those different cohorts. Let's look at a completed. So, again, you will be determining based on the cohorts what students are proficient. That's our goal. We're looking at what students we want to be proficient based on the cohorts. Example, here it says students that were close to proficient, we're going to assess them by the DMA word problem number 1, change unknown only. 80% of students that were close to proficient, our goal will be now that 80% of the students will be proficient or higher on the post-assessment. Take some time to read through each one of the cohorts and the SMART goal. Again, the next tab is additional recording space for your learning targets and your SMART goal. And the last tab is the checklist tab. The checklist tab is utilized to evaluate your TBT meetings effectiveness checklist. This is utilized after each TBT meeting. If you are at the beginning stages of OIP and this is your first year, the recommendation is that you do complete this TBT meeting checklist after each meeting. If this is your second or third year in the process, the recommendation is that you complete this on a quarterly basis. Thank you for taking time out. Please email me or call me if you have any questions. Thank you.